Here we go. We're up to 6 lines on the bottom of the page. Itmar. Itmar we learned. Hamare dinner l'shulchani. If you showed, okay, so what we're learning about here is we've said, Rabbi Yechanan said that if someone is a professional, he is exempt. And even though he might have caused the loss, it turned out to be his advice was bad and he caused the loss, he's potter because Rabbi Yechanan does not believe in the laws of Din Degami, that if you cause, you have to pay. But if you're not a professional, you had no right to be involved, then you're considered a mazik. Prior to that, Gemara, we said there's a difference if you get paid or you do it gratis. We said if you get paid, you're responsible for anything that happens. If you do it gratis, so then if you know what you're doing, you're exempt. If you don't know what you're doing, then it's like it's negligence and you are chayiv. So the Gemara tells us a story now, or even we learned. Sorry, not a story. The Gemara discusses a contradiction of two brises. Hamare dinner l'shulchani. You had money changers, and they were experts. They knew every coin, different coins, depending how much silver it is. They knew. And they said, yeah, this coin is in currency, you can use it. V'nim tzara turned out to be that it was not in circulation, it was counted, whatever it is, it's not useful anymore. So Tony Chod, in one Bryce, it said, if he is a professional potter, he's exonerated. Hedyet, but if he's an ordinary person, chayiv, then he is liable. But the Tanya Idach, we learned in another Bryce, Beinumen, Bein Hedyet chayiv. I don't care if you're a professional or not a professional, you are responsible. So it seems here that you're responsible. So how do we reconcile these two brises? Now, the Gemara could have answered very simply. The brise that says that you're exempt is talking about if you did it for free. And the brise that says you're responsible talk about you paid money. So Tosha says, in this case here, when it comes to be able to discern one coin from the next and to see whether the coin is a going currency, you need to be a tremendous expert. So therefore, even if you did it for free, if you're not a really top in your class, you're considered negligent. You should not have given an opinion. So the Gemara says, back to the Gemara, Amra Papa, Ki Tanya Potter, a professional is potted, but very few professionals. There's only a professional who's going down Kovi, not just ordinary people who know their coins. It has to be experts like Dankin Isa, who are notable experts in this field. There's nothing for them to learn anymore. They know everything. It's the obvious question is, if these guys are experts, how did they make a mistake? Elamai Tos, what was the mistake? It was the currency that used to be for whatever certain value is no longer circulation. They put a new coin out just recently, so they haven't become that familiar with it yet, and therefore they made a mistake. The they made a mistake. There's new currency that he shited that moment, the nafik that it came out, that currency just came out, and therefore it was brand new. So the obvious question is, so why aren't they negligent? So what if they're professional in their field, but it's a brand new coin? Why give a professional opinion when you're not familiar with it? Why are we treating them lightly? We're giving them an exemption. So is it because of they're generally professionals in every coin that there is available? Therefore, it gives them the right to give a professional opinion about a coin they hardly know about? It's a little difficult to understand the Gemara here, exactly what happened, why they're exonerated. I haven't seen anyone talk about it. I don't know. Ahita was a woman. So the Gemara tells a story now. It was a woman that Chazidin Rabchia. She showed a coin to Rabchia, said, somebody wants to pay me with this coin. Is this going currency or not? Amallah, he said to her, Ma'al you. Yeah, it's good. Lamacha, the following day, Asalakame, she came back to Rabchia. Amallah, she said to him, Achazise, I showed it. But Amallah, they told me Bishu, they told me it's counterfeit. It's a lousy coin. It's not good. And I can't use this money. Now, Rabchia was an expert, it looks like, on currency. Not like Rabbein HaKadosh, who was very wealthy, but he never, looked at his currency. Amalei Rav. So Rabchia turned to his nephew Rav, who seems to be that was his PA, handling all of his affairs, chargé d'affaires. He said to him, Rav, Zil Cholfinella, I want you to reimburse her, give her a different coin, but because of, I want you to write. So we're in the very bottom of the page, Tzadik Tes Amud Beis, and we're learning about if somebody made a mistake in their advice. So Rabchia was a proficient in this area, and yet it seems he gave bad advice, and he said we're going to reimburse us because I want you to write when you're my bookkeeper. You make a note, write Dain Asik Bish. This currency is to cover a bad deal that I did. Now the question is, why should he have to pay? Well, why are they exempt? They have to learn. They were proficient. He was also proficient. We're in the very last line on the Gemara that Tzaddik Tes Amud Beis. So the question is, why did he gave bad advice about a certain currency, but he was an expert, and an expert is potter. So why did he have to reimburse her? Says Gemara, you're right. Rav Chia lifnim mishuras hadin. Rav Chia here was going beyond the letter of the law. Kedetani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef learned. Yisra advised Moshe Rabbeinu that he should have all of these judges for the smaller groups, for 10, for 100, for 1,000. And this allows Moshe Rabbeinu to deal with the major questions. And he says, you'll be able to teach them. And now every word in that pasuk, we're going to learn that Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching something else. Teach them that, number one, teach them Beis Chayim. I want you to teach them we said, you should teach them the way to go and so on, and the deeds that they should do. So Vadashing is followed. You should reveal to them, teach them what is the source of their life, what their houses should be. And Rashi here says, clearly, Talmud Torah. It means to learn Torah. Rashi, but Matziyah says it means to teach your kids and yourself have a parnasa. So it's a contradiction. In fact, there's a big argument between the Rambam and the Tashbats and others. The Rambam says that one does not have the right to throw themselves on the community, that they should support that person so that this person can learn Torah. There's no such thing as a koil. You got to be self-sufficient. You have to have your own job and you have to work. And Tashbats argues and the Yaakov Emden very strong. And then they're saying is, first of all, it's not fair. The Rambam had a brother who's very wealthy, supported him until his ship capsized and he passed away, and then the Rambam had to fend for himself, became a doctor. But it's not fair. You had a brother support you, so therefore you're able to learn Torah. Others don't have brothers or whatever family who's going to support them. How are we going to have more Rambams and more Rosh Yeshivas? So there's a big argument. So these two Rashis seems to be taking different sides. Anyway, then the pasuk says, teach them es haderech, the way, zug mil chasadim. Teach them how to be generous. Yelchu, the way that they should travel in, Zubikal Chayla, visiting the sick. So the Gemara Bamitzia asks already, doesn't Bikal Chayla come under the umbrella of Mil Chasadim? And the Gemara there says, the mitzvah of Bikar Chaylim, there's a mitzvah Bikar Chaylim and there's Mil Chasadim. He said the mitzvah Bikar Chaylim is where you are a Ben Gilei. You take, if we're living on a door, and if you visit the sick, you take away a 60th of their sicknesses. So we ask 60 people come, you take it away. So we say each one takes a soraisa, the Rebbe. That means each one takes away a 60th of whatever's left. But a 60th of the sickness is the mitzvah b'gachayim. To go there to visit anyway, just gmil chasadim. Now we learn out from Yaakov. It says when Yosef went to visit Yaakov, it says Yaakov strengthened himself the chazik al reish hamita, to the end of the bed. The Rabbeinu Bechai writes, Hamita is a double hay, which is 10, and Mem is 40, and Tes is 9, is 59. So when Yosef went to visit Yaakov, he was the Ben Gilei of Yaakov, born in the same stars, the celestial stars, the same day. So he took away 1/60th of Yaakov's sickness. So now he strengthened himself, Al Hamita. What he had left was Hamita, 59 parts. Then the passage continues, Ba Zukvura. Again, the Gemara asks, Kvura, comes under the umbrella. So there's two kinds of Kvura. If there's no one to bury them, then that's a mitzvah. If there is someone to bury him, you go anywhere, that's with chasadim. And then we have a Samaisa Zehadin, follow the laws, Ashayasan Zulufnim Sadin, that you should do with Muslim Sadin, which is actually a circular reasoning. It's very difficult to understand. The moment you mandate that you have to do it, it's no longer Lufnim Sadin. You're doing it because that's been mandated. Yisra is telling Moshe, you should tell the Yidden that they should go down this path and they should do Lifnei Sadin. So it's no longer Lifnei Sadin, is it? So the Tosis here and in Rabbi Tzia, it seems to learn that 3 levels of Lifnei Sadin. One level is my battery might die in a minute. So let me just swap over to My phone. Just 1 second. Sorry. Um, let's talk about what we're doing here. One level is that um, anybody else in this circumstance would be obligated. You're potter because you're a zaken. You found a lost object. You're a zaken, an older person's pasnish to bend down for, let's say, a dollar coin. So you're exempt. But anybody else in your would have to pick it up in the midst of Shabbos Aveda. So then lifnim mishur sadin, do what everyone else does. That's the lowest level of lifnim mishur sadin. Then you have another level that everybody in this condition is exempt. And if you still do it, that's a much higher level. That's a much greater level of the Fnim Mishur Sadin. And then you have the highest level, and that is a story in the Gemara in Bab Metzia, where Rabba Bar Chana, I'm going to close it down and go to the other one. So Rabba Bar Chana is hired these people to come and bring him a barrel of wine. They went and they broke it. So not only they didn't bring it, they destroyed the barrel of wine, caused a big loss. So what he did was he took the clothes off the back, he charged them for it. They went to Dinter to Rab, and Rab said to Rabbi Chana, give them back their clothing. So he said, why? Is that the halacha? He said, no, but do lifnim mishur sadin. Then they turned around and said, but we didn't get paid for the work. And Rab said, paid? I'm going to pay you. First of all, you didn't fulfill your job. And second of all, you caused me a major loss. And Rab ruled that you have to pay. Why lifnim mishur sadin? Says Traces, this is the highest level of lifnim mishur sadin, where you not only didn't you're going beyond the law, the guys caused you a loss, and yet you're paying them for the work that they never really did. That's the highest level of Shur. So maybe, when Yisra was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to tell the Eden about the Shur, we're talking about the lowest level where everybody else has to do it. You're exempt, but the right thing to do is to be like everybody else. So that's sort of almost like obligatory. It's the higher levels which are totally that was not included in Yisrael's advice. Anyway, so Rabbi decided to pay this woman back. Says about another story. Reish Lakish, well, they didn't. Rabbi Lazar, Reish Lakish turned around once and he showed Rabbi Lazar, who was a student of Rabbi Yechanan, a coin. He said, "Tell me, what's this coin? Can I use it or not?" And somebody wants to pay me with it. Rabbi Lazar advised him, "Yes, it's a valid coin." Amalei, I want you to know Chazi. I want you to know, be aware, I'm relying on you. If it doesn't turn out, I'm going to come after you and you're going to have to reimburse me. Amalei said, if you're relying on me, then what are you saying? You want me to pay you? You want me to pay you for reimburse you? I'm only a cause because I didn't make anything. I just gave you advice. And according to many, only Rameya says didn't the gamin. You're the one who said Rameya, the dining me. You once said Rameya is the one who says didn't gamin, as if to say my love Rameya, but you don't hold like it. So in other words, I caused you a loss. Why should I have to reimburse you? No, the ruling is like Rameya that we didn't the gamin. So remember, I told you last time. Rashi holds there's no difference garmi grama. We have a rule. Ein grama ben zikin. So therefore, whoever holds ein grama ben zikin holds also ein. There's no garmi, and Rameir is a lone opinion. But most Rishonim learn garmi is a direct cause and grama is an indirect cause. And the definition of a cause is a delay in time. If it happens instantaneously, generally it's considered a mice. It's only if there's a delay in time that's definitely called. That's not the only factor, but it's definitely called a grama. So on Shabbos, many people open the fridges. Most people open the fridge on Shabbos, open an oven, take water out of the urn. Your warm air is rushing in, and as a result of that, the refrigerator goes on sometimes within a couple of minutes, sometimes a bit longer, but you brought it forward. Or the urn, you took out some water, caused it to go back on, or the fire, the oven. But that's a grama because there's a delay in the time. It doesn't happen as soon you open the fridge and the light goes on. That's considered you did a malach on Shabbos. You open the fridge and maybe 5 minutes later, or while you're holding it open, suddenly the fridge goes on. That's grama because there's a delay. Means it wasn't direct; it's indirect. And garmi is much more direct than a grama. So, and if we learn that way, then the halacha is like Rameir and garmi. In fact, Tosfos has a discussion Who argues on Garmi? So according to Rashi, there's no issue. Whoever holds Grumma doesn't apply, neither is Garmi. But according to Taisa says we who hold Garmi separate from Grumma, who actually argues with Rab Meir? But Rabbi Lazar was a professional, so why would he have to pay anyway? So Taisa says he wasn't really a top-notch professional. We said before, have to be top-notch. Or maybe because Reish Lakish spelled it out, even if you're professional, if you stipulate clearly, I'm telling you, you're going to be responsible if you give me bad advice, then maybe you do have to pay if you gave bad advice. Says the Gemara, now that we established Rab Meir and we had it so many times, the Gemara, which Rab Meir said that? Where is there such a Rab Meir? So we're up to the Gemara here. The Gemara finally is going to try to work out where did Rab Meir say that Garmi, you are liable. So the Gemara is going to go through a number of cases to finally find this Rab Meir. Case number one. Says the Gemara, hi Rab Meir, where's Rab Meir? Rab Meir, now we looked in the Mishnah in Sanhedrin, and this is how the Gemara understood initially. Dones Hadin, a judge made a psak, he made a ruling. Zikes Achai, somebody who owed money to somebody else and gave this guy security. He said to the bar, you know what? Go take your security back. You don't owe the money. But really he did, made a mistake. Or Chiyav, that somebody who was innocent and he said to the guy, the borrower who really didn't owe the money, he says to the guy, to the defendant, you have to pay. Now, in all these cases, he's only a cause. He just told them what to do and they did it. He said that this which is Torah, he said, you know what? This is really Tameh. He said that this is really Tameh. Or Tameh. And what he did was, after he said that this is a Tameh, they took it and they mixed it with all the Talmudic things because they thought it's useless. It has no need anymore. When in fact, it was really Torah. Again, he caused it to happen because the owner took it and ruined it. Or the last case was Tihen Esat Tameh. Or something which the Tameh said was Torah, and then the guy took it and mixed it with all his regular stuff. It turned out to be there was less than 100 times as much, and it was Tameh. Masha Asa Asi. What he did. The Yishala Bebeser. He has to pay from his house. In other words, his psak remains, but he has to pay. So here we see that a cause has to pay. Says the Gemara, if you're looking at and Hedger, we learned clearly over there. There we said, you know when the Dayan is responsible? In all of these cases, that he personally was involved. He took that item which he said is Tameh, and he threw it away. Or he took that item which he said is Torah, and he put it amongst all the Torah things. So it wasn't just a cause. He was actually personally involved. Nothing to do with Gami. Okay. El-Haramer. The Rameir that we learned a few times before, we'll learn again soon. It's not we learned. Adam, you hired somebody and you told them, I want you to dye this material red. But he made it black. Or Shachar, he told black, he made it red. Rameir says, Rameir says, he made a shilling. He's a ganef. He changed it. And when you change it, you keep the item. The ganef keeps the item, and you have to pay back whatever the original item was. So again, now it was in a way he's only a cause in. Now, why is he a cause over here? He took the dye and he put it in. He's a cause because the dye takes a few days before it actually penetrates the material and gets totally absorbed. That's grumma. So we're answering again. Even though it's grumma, but really it's much more than grumma because he went and he put the dye in the water and he put the material in the water. That's much. Even though there's a delay in time, it's much more. It's similar to grumma. Now we learned if you go ahead and have climb. Climb is if you grow vines and wheat together. There's a case of climb over here. Now there's an argument. If I bring my grapes, bring it to your wheat, you have no idea, you have no inkling what was happening. If I have the right to prohibit your wheat because I am forbidding something that doesn't belong to me. So there's an argument in the Gemara, Adam Oisa Dovish Einu Shaloi or Ein Adam Oisa Dovish Einu Shaloi. But we're following the opinion that says that you could, I guess, asa something that belongs to you. So the guy put the grapes right on top of the wheat. Had a kiddush, he ruined the entire lot. The chayiv, and he has to pay the owner of the wheat, reimburse him. So isn't that a case of of grumma? Why is it grumma? It doesn't happen straight away. It takes time for it to grow. When it comes to, it has to grow more than 1/200th. You need an amount to grow more than 1/200. So now let's say the amount that grew is a ratio of 1 to 199, and now it ruins everything. Everything is ruined.
Says more again, even though it took time, but there he was actively involved. He took the vines and placed it there. That's not a typical example of Gami. The din is that you have to keep it apart 4 amas. If you have a vineyard and you have a wheat field, you have to keep them 4 amas apart. Why? It's not because of the wheat field. It's more to do with the vineyard, because he needs 4 amas to be able to plant around his vines. He has to work around it. He has to plow around it. He needs the machinery, cows, and everything else. We got to give him 4 amas. However, if you build a fence between the two, then you can bring both the wheat up to the fence, you can bring the vines up to the fence, because anyway, you're not going to go on that side. So what happened? But who's the mazik here? It's the vines who's considered the mazik, the person, the owner of the vines. So what happened was the time in the Braisa, Mechitzas HaKedesh, there's a wall there, and it collapsed. He turned around and he told the guy, the owner of the grapes, you need to put up a fence. The machlek is whether the peasant tells him or the other person, but someone has to tell him. Otherwise, he didn't realize. He built a fence and fell down and collapsed again. He told him a second time. And then the third time, it doesn't say tell him, so it's an argument where you have to tell him again enough. Anyway, after 2 times doing it, he just gave up. He said, well, I'm spending all this money, it's a waste of time. But like Gidri, he didn't build up a fence. Now what happens is Hareza Kiddush, as a result of that, now the grapes grow into the wheat field. The vines grow into the wheat field, you now becomes Klein. The Chai Bach and you're responsible. Now here, this is Grumma. He didn't do anything actively. The fence collapsed. He just did not rebuild it. It's passive. And yet we're holding him responsible. So this is the Rameya that says, Dina Digami. Mishnah. You gave your wool to someone to die, and the pot boiled up. You boiled way too long, and it boiled and boiled, and it ruined the wool. Now we had a whole discussion in the Gemara before that how does it work with a tradesman? Does the tradesman own the improvement, and then he sort of sells it back to the owner of the materials, and that's what he gets paid for? Or do we say that the Uman does not own anything? It belongs to the owner of the materials, and any improvement belongs to the owner of the materials. So we asked the question, if that's the pshat, the second way, so L'chayda, why is he only paying for the wool? Before he burnt it, it improved, so he should pay the higher value. And we answered, it's talking about a case where before it had a chance to improve, you put it into the water and ruined the whole thing. It never improved. So he has to pay the made similar. He has to pay the money for the wool, because he has to pay the money because basically he ruined it. What about Tzavay Ka'ar? He dyed it in an ugly way, and the Gemara explains, talking about he used the residual part of the dye, so it's very poor quality. But on the other hand, he didn't ruin it completely. It did improve, but nothing like what it should have. And then the rule as follows: we're having more about Matzia. If I go to your field without your permission, I plow your field, I plant it, and everything else, you have to pay me, even though you had no permission. But how much you pay me? There's obviously the improved value of the field, and then there's the expense. Whichever is the lesser amount, that's what the owner of the field has to pay. So the same thing here. I improved your wool. I used poor quality dye, but I improved your wool. So what? So it depends now. Whichever is the lesser amount, the expense or the improvement, that's what the owner of the wool has to pay. If the improvement is more than the expense, you pay me the expense. But if the expense is more than the improvement, then you pay me the improvement. Now, what exactly constitutes expense? The big machlek is whether it's just the material, just the dye that you have to pay him for, or all the other materials they use besides the dye. He has to light a fire, he use gas, wood, whatever, all the other materials they use to pay for. And the third opinion is also, what about the time? He spent 3 hours. Okay, you don't have to pay him his fee. But what about the time? He spent 3 hours. You pay him like a worker you would have hired, and you pay $10 an hour. You should pay him $30. And so you have to pay, and that also is included in the expenses. So that's what you do. You pay him whichever one is less. If the fee that he charged you is less than the expense and the improvement, you have the option of just paying him the fee and taking it back. What about this boy? We just had it. You hired him to dye red with shach. He made black shach, black with red. And the mayor says, no, you should made similar. Where's a ganef? Now he's one step less than a ganef, because a ganef, when they steal it because they want to keep it. This person who dyed it doesn't want to keep it. But he didn't listen to instructions. He thought he knows better. So he's like a ganef, but not 100%. Rameir treats him like a ganef. Shinui koina, you made a change. Therefore, you get to keep the material, and you have to pay him for the wool. Rabbi Yehuda says, Im hashevach. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Two ways to learn Rabbi Yehuda. One is he holds you're not a ganef at all, like we said, because you don't want to keep it. So therefore, Shinui here doesn't do anything. And of course, Shina doesn't do anything. You give it back to the owner of the materials, but he should pay you for the improvement or the expense, whichever is less. The other way Rashi says is because it's a penalty. Rita says it's not fair. The guy didn't listen to instructions, and he should get he should get to keep the wool. It's not fair. He has to give the wool back to the owner, or he has to pay for the wool. Number one. And also for all the expenses he put in and the improvements, will only give him the lesser amount. So it's like a double penalty. The Buddha says, the improvements were more than expense, they give him expense. Like, whichever is less. Says the Gemara, kar, you said you used kar, which means ugly. What does that mean? My kalabus, what is that? I'm going to Shmuel, kafra doye, a large pot that you use for a dyeing, and then you scrape off the walls of the pot, and that the residue, the residual dye that's there on the walls, you use that. Poor quality. So that's why in that case over there, but you did improve it somewhat, so you get paid out either the improvement or the expense, whichever is less. Tanam learned. I know you gave wood to a carpenter last man kisa. You told him, please make me a chair. And he made a bench. He didn't listen. You told him make a bench, he made a chair. Rameir says, Rameir said the same thing, like the Mishnah. You made a shina, a change, you're like a ganef, you get to keep it, and you have to pay him for the materials. Rabbi Yehuda says, like in our Mishnah, no, we penalize him, where Rashi learned. We penalize, why should the ganef be able to keep it? He has to pay, what do you call it? He has to give it back to the original owner, and then he can get paid out something for some modicum amount for whatever it is, depending whichever is lesser amount. If the improvement is more than the expense, you give him the expense. And if the expense is more than the improvement, you give them improvement. There's one instance Rameir agrees, and that is, if you gave wood to a carpenter, last is mehen kisanot, to make a nice chair. But he made an ugly chair. So now here, it's not a massive shini. He made a chair for you, but you wanted a top quality, and he made it ordinary. So even a mayor will concede that's not a shini. Not a shini at all. So he can give it back to the original person, and he definitely improved the wood. He made a chair out of it, just not the very high quality. So he definitely improved. So there, in this case, the owner of the wood has to pay to this carpenter, whichever is the lesser amount. Or a bench, and he made a poor quality. Yes, the improvement is more than the expense. You might see, give the expense. You might see, and if the expense is more than the improvement, you give him the money of the shevach improvement. Okay, we'll stop here and have a good luck, everybody.